Hi everybody, it's Emma here from Open Skies Hypnotherapy again, and today I'm doing another podcast for you. This one is about a musical that I went to see today. The musical that I saw with my daughter at Norwich Theatre was Dear Evan Hansen. If you are not familiar with Dear Evan Hansen, it's essentially about a boy called Evan who has social anxiety, which is a huge thing at the moment among our young people and indeed among adults as well. So, Evan has social anxiety. The actor that we saw today did an absolutely fantastic job of portraying exactly what that might feel like. And I was blown away by what he did in the way that he acted that out. Um, so he's got this anxiety and he's at school and his mum is a single mum. She's very busy, working a lot of hours, not really there very much. And there's a guy in his school called Connor Murphy. Connor's family are very wealthy, or appear to be. Connor is troubled. Um, Connor is very angry and has a lot going on. And unfortunately, Connor takes his own life, which is a really difficult subject. It's a subject that we tend to shy away from, and I am pleased that it is a subject that is now being discussed and portrayed in our musicals because I think that is really important. So Connor takes his own life, and Evan finds himself in a situation where he is basically pretending that he was Connor's friend when Connor was alive, and he has to kind of keep this lie going. It starts quite innocently, but he then has to keep it going. He has to pretend to Connor's parents that they were great friends and that Connor was enjoying life and was feeling good. And it's all a complete and utter fabrication. He has to get his friend to create an email account and backdate emails. Um, this lie goes on for some time. He feels very guilty, but he's also stuck in a cycle of lying, can't get out of the lie. In the end, people start to question the emails and say that they don't make any sense, and then he has to come clean. That's the basic storyline. So within this musical, we have many themes to discuss. We have Connor's suicide. We have the issue of lying, as in, is this a good or a bad thing? Social anxiety, the fact that Evan has an absent parent. His dad is absent. He's got a new family now. Doesn't want to know Evan particularly. Evan's mum is absent at work a lot, and then we see her pain as a single mum and the hurt of missing out as a single parent, the hurt of missing out on giving Evan two parents, basically. The grieving over the ending of that relationship. So I wanted to just chat about the musical because it's a very interesting musical, and it was a hard watch. It was lovely in parts, and then absolutely heart-wrenching in others. And Connor's suicide was hard because I spoke to my daughter about this. My daughter's 9, and she is an actor herself, and she's quite mature for her age, and we can discuss very adult themes. And she told me that she felt that Connor was quite troubled, came across as sometimes quite shy, other times quite mean and nasty. And he does indeed come across as a very angry character, but behind the anger, there will be fear. Every client that I see who has an anger problem is always frightened of something underneath it all. There's always fear. So anger is like a mask that we put on and it hides fear. So I would surmise that Connor was quite scared of something. Now, one of the things that struck me from a therapy point of view within the show was the divide between rich and poor. And so, what I mean by that is that Connor's parents were very wealthy. Evan's mother, being a single working parent, was not wealthy at all. Connor's parents seemed to believe, and I'm not casting any blame here because we only know how to use the tools that we have and in the way that we know how to use them. But Connor's parents seemed to believe that the best way to look after their children was to throw money at them. They were very wealthy. They talked about having put money aside for Connor to put him through college. They talked about, being able to put Evan through college as well, which I'll talk about later. Now, scientific research shows us as therapists that if we are doing everything for our kids, giving them all of the materialistic stuff, not allowing them to go out and do it for themselves, we will send them spiraling into a cycle of depression. That is not my opinion, that is a scientific fact. Because as humans, we have lots of human needs, and one of those needs is meaning and purpose. We have to have purpose in life. If somebody is giving you everything on a plate, you have no purpose. You have no need to go out and stretch yourself. You have nothing to strive for each day. We work on a principle of pleasure and reward. If I go to work and I earn money and I can pay my bills and then I've got money left over to go to the theatre and watch Dear Evan Hansen, I feel pretty good about myself because I've worked for that money, it's mine, and that these are my rewards. I can go out and have a nice time. And that's my natural dopamine hit. That's my natural high. That's my natural sense of this is how I'm releasing chemicals in my brain, happy chemicals, pleasure and reward chemicals. Okay. Achievement and doing things for ourselves gives us the natural hit. In the musical, Connor wasn't getting any natural hit at all because his parents were just blindly giving him or putting money aside for him. And it was all about, fine wines. And they were talking about getting wines from posh vineyards and all kinds of stuff. He's got no natural dopamine hit. So, of course, he's taking substances. He was talking about, being high at the breakfast table one morning. And not going to school because of it. So we will then, unfortunately, if we're not getting natural dopamine hits, we are then going to have to get that need met by means of an unnatural dopamine hit, i.e., a substance of some kind. His parents presumably didn't know how to do things any other way, and that's not their fault particularly, but it's something that I wanted to talk about because they talked throughout the show about sending him to all different treatment programs. He'd been to all kinds of different treatment programs and yoga retreats and all kinds of stuff. And it felt very much like they were throwing money at the problem rather than actually trying to examine where the problem had stemmed from. And yes, therapy's great, and I'm a therapist and I advocate therapy. I love therapy. I'd go to therapy myself, and I have been. I also go on yoga retreats and mindfulness retreats, and I'm very much an advocate of having therapy and exercising mindfulness and caring for yourself, your mind and your body. But there is a but. Whatever I do in my therapy room will not work if parents are not making the changes within the family unit at home. Whatever I do, if I have a client like Connor, whatever I do will mean nothing if he goes home and they just start repeating the same cycle. If they don't make changes in the way that they're dealing with things, Stop throwing money, start examining where the real problem is, and start trying to work with that. Whatever I do will fall flat on its face. We cannot treat our children in that way. We cannot throw money at them. We are sending them down a path of depression, and we are sending them down a path of very deep anxiety, which will also have an effect on their physical health, not just their mental health. Every adult client, without fail, that comes to my room with any form of childhood trauma will tell me that their parents were absent, working long hours, and that whilst they never wanted for anything in terms of material possessions, they were emotionally starved. I hear that all the time. I hear that all the time. Kids don't need that kind of stuff. They just need time. Time is the one thing that we do not have an infinite supply of. And so every second that we can spend with them is so valuable. So that was the first theme that really hit me. They also tried to pay for Evan to go to college later in the musical because Connor had obviously sadly died, and they said, well, Evan can use his money to go off to college. Again, well-intentioned, but extremely insulting to Evan's mother, who was a single mum working all the hours God sent, and is now not only having to deal with the stigma of being a single mum and the judgment and the absolute utter bloody exhaustion that goes with it, working your butt off just to make ends meet. We've got to deal with all of that. And now we've got some well-intentioned people throwing money at us for our child, therefore reinforcing a narrative that we've already carried for far too long, a narrative that says we are not good enough on our own, we have failed our child. Now, yes, you might say, well, how generous of them. But I'm afraid when you're a single mum and you're trying your best to do it all on your own, and you already feel like a failure because society has labelled you a failure just by the fact that your marriage broke down, that kind of narrative just makes it worse. So another problem for me when I watched the musical, another problem, and I really felt for Evan's mum at that particular point in the show. I really felt for her. She felt that she'd lost him to a walking cash machine, somebody who was going to give him everything that she couldn't, and that would have cut her deep. So yes, they're the themes that I was going to discuss. Being absent as a parent, working long hours again, a lot of guilt goes with that. We don't need to be made to feel worse by somebody then throwing money at our children. Missing out as a working parent, again, very hard, very, very hard. We need a balance between spending time with our children, guiding our children, not letting them be babysat by Netflix and YouTube and TV shows, but also still maintaining our own sense of identity and a very real need to go out and make money. It's a very hard balance. It's just being mindful of the conflicting priorities and actually how the children view the fact that we are working long hours, because Evan felt very much that she was not there for him. And he did actually say that when they were having a big row. He said, well, you're never here. Why the hell would I tell you anything? You're not here. Excuse me. And yeah, I think like that was that hit me hard, really hit me. And it's about carving out a little bit of time for your children, and keeping that bond, because if we don't keep a bond with our children, they will stop talking to us. And when they stop talking to us, we are in trouble. Because I would rather my daughter come and talk to me about difficult and hard-hitting subjects that I might find very difficult, than not talking to me at all, because then I've lost her and then I can't guide her. So it's really important to try to carve out a little bit of time, even though we do have to work and we do have our own identity. We do need to try to carve out that bit of time for our children, and to recognise how much they might be hurting. She said that she didn't know how much Evan was hurting. We need to be checking in, especially in this age of mass social media use, lack of connection, lack of empathy, now being all things that are compounded by excessive use of social media. The musical showed what they believed to be Connor's suicide note. It wasn't actually his suicide note at all. It had been written by Evan, but they believed this was his suicide note, and they uploaded it straight away onto social media to try to raise more money for his memorial, which again, the purpose was well intentioned, but it was a very crass and just very unsavory thing to do, to upload someone's deepest pain onto a social media platform. It just made me shudder to think that we would believe that that was acceptable. It was done without any hesitation. She didn't even think about it. She just said, "Oh yeah, this is great. This is exactly what we need to do." And bang, it was uploaded within seconds. And I just thought, that's somebody telling you that they're really hurting. I mean, it wasn't Connor, it was Evan. It doesn't matter who it was. Somebody's telling you that they've not had a great day, they're not going to have a great year. They think it would be better if they just disappeared. And we're going to use that and upload it to social media so people can pick over it while they're, going about their daily life. And I just think that nothing is sacred anymore. And this is feeding into a huge amount of social anxiety. We do need to be very careful how we're using social media. I understand that, raising the money for the memorial garden in the musical was a positive thing for Connor's parents. It gave them a space to go to grieve and feel close to their son. But the way it was done was not okay. Um, so lying, again, this is probably the last topic I'll talk about because I'm running out of time tonight. But lying, is it ever okay? Again, another moral dilemma. This musical really confronting some very hard-hitting moral dilemmas, really making us think very deeply about some issues. Absolutely staggeringly, brilliantly written musical. I just, so many things that I could talk about from a therapy point of view, with this musical. So, the guys that wrote this really should be commended very highly for what they have done in terms of raising some real awareness of some issues. And I hope that this podcast tonight will help a bit further with that from a therapeutic perspective. So, lying, is it ever okay? Well, I guess the answer is it depends on your point of view. Now, Evan was telling lies because he wanted Connor's parents to believe that Connor um, had a better life than they thought he did. He wanted to send them off with some sense of peace so that they could kind of make peace with where they were and not have this kind of harrowing, emptiness and numbness. He wanted something positive to come from it. I think he wanted to send them off feeling more positive about things. And as I say, it started quite innocently, and then it escalated very quickly, and then he felt trapped, and then he couldn't stop. And that's what happens when we lie. We get sent down rabbit holes, and then we have to tell another lie to support the original lie, and then we forget what's the truth and what's the lie, and then it all gets a bit rubbish. So, in the end, he was very guilty. He was carrying a big burden of guilt, and he couldn't carry on with that. He couldn't do that, so he came clean, which caused a huge problem, with his relationship with Zoe Murphy and the rest of the family. And it's really, really sad that he felt the need to lie. And again, it was well intentioned. This is all well intentioned. I don't think anybody in this world is doing anything that isn't, coming from some sort of good intention, but it's the way we're doing it. We just need to be really careful how we're going about doing these things. So it's well intentioned. He's trying to protect the family. He's trying to give them some positivity to cling to. He's trying to do a good thing, but he is going about it all the wrong way. And I think because he's socially anxious and he's never really had anyone who's been there for him, he's never felt like he fitted in. He's never felt like he belonged. He's been in therapy for a while, and the therapist has told him to write these letters to himself, and he's been really struggling. This lie gave him away into another family unit where he felt he belonged. He felt that things were going somewhere with Zoe. And so he needed the lie in the end to feel like he belonged somewhere and to feel important. And that's really sad that that's what he had to do to feel like he belonged and he was accepted. And so there's a lot of strings to this musical. There's a lot of aspects, a lot of themes. I'd love to be running some workshops in the future around this musical just to really dig into some of this a bit deeper with some children and young people, just to really hammer home some of these themes. And, we don't need to lie to be accepted. I mean, he was looking for validation. He wanted desperately to be validated and seen and heard. He didn't think he was getting that at home. He didn't know how to get that at school because he was a misfit. So you know, he went with the lie because it was giving him something that he needed, which was a human connection with another family, attention, meaning and purpose, raising money for the Connor Memorial Garden, a feeling of belonging somewhere, social status, all of these things is giving him all of these, is meeting all these human needs. Um, so the overriding message that I took from today was that we really need to be kinder to one another. We need to understand everyone's fighting a battle and everyone's probably feeling some sort of pain. Everybody in this show had something going on. The Murphy parents, very money orientated, very materialistic, failing to understand that that wasn't what Connor needed, failing to understand what he really did need. Not their fault, like I say, but this is perhaps the way they've been raised themselves. Relationships seemed to be quite volatile at times between the Murphy parents. They seemed very keen to, people please, throwing money at Evan without a second thought. Evan's mum, guilty about the breakdown of the relationship between herself and Evan's father. A very painful song towards the end of the show, highlighting how small she felt when the relationship ended and how big the house felt in comparison. The ideals that we want for our children, that perfect family, all blown out of the window for her. Some real deep pain to go through, having to then do everything on her own, etc. Lots of pain, lots of guilt, feelings of shame, failure. Evan with his anxiety, Connor with that terrible fear and anger. Maybe he's scared, um, lost, troubled, no natural highs because he's not being allowed to experience what they might be, caught up in substances. So everybody really in the show has their own pain, and we need to always look behind the mask. We need to look behind the mask, and actually see into the heart of what people are trying to tell us with the way that they behave and the things that they say and the things that they do. What are they trying to tell us? The message from Evan Hansen that I loved the most was the part where he says, "Today is going to be a good day because at least you can be you, and that's enough." And I think he's absolutely right. I think whoever we are is enough. We need to be more compassionate to one another. We can all go on a journey of learning and growth. We can all be the best version of ourselves. We can all go through therapy and treatment and learn how to be that better person and that more accepting and compassionate person. But just for today, just for today, if you are struggling, just know that you are enough and that, sometimes that's all you need to be. I really hope this has helped. I've really enjoyed filming this podcast. It was a brilliant musical. So congratulations to the people who wrote it. It's an incredible show. The actors today were phenomenal at Norwich Theatre. So if you are part of that cast and you're watching this, we came to the matinee. I'm recording this on Thursday, the 15th of May, and we were at the matinee. So if you were in that show, you were incredible. And thank you. You have sparked a great discussion here. Um, enjoy as I say, issues that come out of this. Please use this to start some open conversations in your own households. And I will see you again really soon for another podcast. Take care. Bye bye. Bye bye.